Good morning, everyone. I'm Asha Sarogi, a student of BCom Professional at the Department of Professional Studies, Christ University. I'm a public relations associate at Cognito 2023. Today, for the interview, we have Sanjive Khosla with us. Being a catalyst in making the Dubai Expo 2020 a success, it speaks volume about his sincerity and dedication for his work. He was instrumental in transforming Dubai Holding into an investment holding company, proving that there is not an individual who failed to deliver a job of the highest caliber in each of his endeavors. He has set an example of what persistence, commitment, and determination looks like with excellent leadership when put along with strived effort. Since 2017, he has served as the Vice President for Research and Analytics at Expo 2020, where he was in charge of determining where visitors to the expo would come from and assist in the development of initiatives to attract visitors to the expo, which he was successful in doing. To conduct the interview today, we have our alumni Shruti Ramaswamy, who graduated in 2020 with BCom International Finance and is currently working in BShop in talent acquisition for global recruitment operations. She has specialized in HR and has attended a little over 30 tests and placed in multiple of them. She was the Director of Marketing for Cognito Aviation 2020 and has also been awarded Leadership Principles Award and Resignation Exam. Along with her, we have Aditya Raj Purohit, who is currently studying at Rice University in BCom International Finance and is the PR Associate at Cognito 2022. He will be accompanying her. Thank you so much for joining us today here at Cognito Talks 2022. And we at the Department of Professional Studies, Christ University, have always tried to inculcate learning and development in a holistic manner. Now I'll be handing it over to Shruti and Aditya Rajpur to continue the Q&A session.
Thank you, Ashna. Thank you for that. So start off with the first question. Sir, looking at your educational background, it has been diverse. So what key values did you learn from your college life?
Oh, it's been a while, obviously, since I got out of college. I finished my undergraduate in '92, and then I went on straight to do my MBA in '94. I finished out there. I think, in terms of values, of course, a lot of the values that you learn at home, firstly, right? I mean, I think I was very fortunate to, have be brought up with a very good set of values, which I think has helped me through my years. My dad was in the IAS, then in the public sector, so you're taught while you're growing up to really work hard, be honest, be truthful, be respectful, all of which helped me as I was going and getting into college. In college, however, I think the one thing that really you learn is to actually keep an open mind, because you go to suddenly to college and you meet people from all different parts of India. Sometimes, depending on which college you're going to, you might even have international students, and they have all different perspectives on different issues. I was very lucky again to be in a college which is regarded as a liberal arts college where things were debated and discussed extensively. So I think all those values have helped me over the years. I think especially once especially if you move to an international market and you're working out there and you work with people from all over the world, especially keeping an open mind and learning how to work with people from all nationalities is something that has always helped me. I mean, I wasn't working with people from different nationalities, but I was definitely studying with people from all over India with different backgrounds, and that you carry that with you and keep an open mind, and that really helps.
So before I can ask you the next question, I would like to tell you it's an honor to meet you. I've seen a lot of stories about the Dubai Expo, and it's fabulous. The kind of attention it gets is obviously out of this world. People travel all over to see it. So it must be a little tough to manage all of this, especially because of the kind of media attention it gets. How have the values that you've learned in college how have they aided you in this journey towards working from a manager and a CCO to the senior SVP in Expo?
Yeah, I think it's a very good question. I mean, the journey has been, so firstly, just a little bit about Expo, right? I think I have never worked in a project of this nature, right? It's just in terms of sheer scale, sheer ambition, what we were trying to achieve. Also sheer complexity. I haven't actually ever worked in such a project, and I have worked on many very big projects in Dubai. That's one of the benefits. I've been here for 21 years. I came here when the city was actually a little town. The population of Dubai was 500,000 people when I moved here. It's today's 3.5 million people. So I was involved with a lot of big projects which helped grow the city of Dubai. Now, with all of that, and you mentioned also, media spotlight. Remember, we had 192 countries taking part in this, so it's very political. Also, there's international relations. There's a lot of complexity which is there around it. You need to have firstly very, very strong leadership, which we had. We had the support of the government, which was very, very strong, and then we had a very, very good team. Right, we picked people from all over the world, and not everybody, by the way, would fit in here. So I think, from my personal perspective, the one thing that I think allowed me to go through this entire event and deliver it successfully was also being very patient, right? I mean, I think we went through a lot of tough times at Expo, COVID being definitely the biggest one that we had to deal with. And you just got to be very, very patient with yourself, with what's happening around you. Sometimes you may not like what people are doing, or you may not agree with all the decisions that are happening around you, but it may not be your decision, and you have to learn how to accept that there are certain things that you can change and there are certain things you can't change. So you're better off focusing on the things that you can change rather than the ones you can't. So that's really is I mean, there is a serenity prayer. I'm sure you guys are familiar with what the serenity prayer is, and that's really what it is about, right? I mean, you really need to, especially in this kind of an environment, you need to have that value.
So for the next question, so in today's generation, people define success as most people define success as starting up your own, startup and running your own business. And during your college life, you must have had thoughts where you were also like, maybe I should start we should have a startup of my own. So was there any thought as such of a startup?
Yeah, so I think this is where our age actually difference comes out a little bit. So during my time, that was getting into startups was not really, or setting up your own company was really not an option, right? I mean, it was a very different era. People would educate themselves to get a good job. That was it, right? I mean, nobody was, I can think from my batch, I think there was only one, and I'm talking now IIM, there was only one person I can remember who straight on went on to his own business. Now, and that was also, he was somebody who already had a family-owned business and he went back into that family-owned business. Everybody else picked up a job. That changed over a period of time, and people tried their jobs, and then the Indian market changed. A lot of people went abroad. They picked up another job, and when they went to the US, or they went to the UK or Singapore, and there they started setting up their own startups. In fact, most of the people who I know who have actually set up startups from my vintage and my batch probably landed up doing it in their 40s. And if you actually go and look at the data out there, even in the US, that is actually we hear about, of course, Zuckerberg and Elon Musk and all these guys who set up startups when they're very young. But in reality, the majority of the startup creation happens in that age, 35, 40, Uh, so so it wasn't the same. Now for me, uh, why did I never consider doing a startup? It's a good question. I've been asked that question quite a few times. I think eventually a lot of it depends on, how, well, firstly, sometimes it depends on your personal circumstances, right? I mean, because if you're going to go into a startup, you have to be able to at least invest some time and money. You should be able to, if you may, manage your necessities, whatever those be, without there being a salary, because you may not get a salary for a year, 2 years, whatever that be the case. This is now your need. And I think in my case, that was it. Some of it was that I had personal circumstances that I needed to take care of, family, etc. Which is probably why also a lot of people start setting up startups at the age of 40, because by that time you've you've you have a kitty, so to say. Your family is set up, and maybe they're already all educated and stuff like that. So I think that was probably the big driving factor why I never considered a startup. But that's not to say that other people shouldn't. I think it's if you feel that that's really the thing that you want to do, you should do it. I have to say one thing though. I think there is merit in working for a few years before you set up a startup, right? Not everybody, I think, and like I said, I mean, startups have a very high failure rate. Working in a corporate, understanding companies work, and you can't learn that by doing just an MBA or maybe the programs that you guys teach, right? You have to actually get into the real world and see and test what works, what doesn't work, everything that you've learned. You try to apply that. And once you've done that for a few years and you realize that, look, okay, this is what works, this is what doesn't work, these are my strengths, this is what I'm good at, this is what I'm not good at, then is a good time to actually look at setting up a startup. That would be my advice and stuff.
Thank you, sir.
So, and to build upon that, there are a lot of students that are going into the workforce. They've recently graduated, and others who are interning and going to start in new companies. And I'm sure you've been asked this many times, but what would you say would be the best type of qualities or a piece of advice that you would give for students to assimilate into the work culture of corporate? Because it's not easy. It does take time for them to settle in. So some precautionary measures before they get in.
Precautionary measures before you get in.
Or pieces of advice, anything.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. Look, when you start a job, firstly, it depends a little bit on what your ambition level is, right? If your ambition level is that, look, I really want to go on and do great things, and I want to, and by the way, even having an ambition that I want to make a lot of money, and generate a lot of wealth for myself, it's not a bad ambition, as long as you're not doing anything which is crooked or illegal, right? I mean, you may want to create amazing products, or you may want to create a lot of wealth, or you may want to do something else. That's all fine. I think what happens in the first few years is really a lot of hard work. It's a lot of grunt work, if you understand the word grunt. And grunt means basically it may not be the work that you thought that you were going to be doing. So I'll give you an example, right? So my first job out of IIM, I was actually working for Godrej GE appliances, refrigerators, washing machines, etc. I was in sales, and the territory that I was given was UP. Now, at that point of time, firstly, and I'm sure it's still the same, my command over written Hindi was very good, but over spoken Hindi and Urdu was terrible, terrible. I couldn't hold a conversation. So I literally walked in to UP without being able to speak Hindi very well. And that was the only mode of doing business. So for me, it was such a steep learning curve that while I was on the job, I of course have to achieve targets, right? Because it is a sales-driven organization. But I also need to learn a language and a culture which I wasn't really familiar with. And then later on, I was also responsible for, managing what is called as a distribution center. So I was actually sitting and working out of a warehouse and supervising the loading and unloading of trucks with refrigerators and washing machines. I wouldn't think that that's the job you do after graduating from IMM. I mean, that's not the job that is sold to you. But sometimes you get that, and that happens as you go through life, right? I mean, you're asked to do things, or you have to do things also. Sometimes you're not even asked, but you just see that somebody has to do it. There's nobody around to do it, and you jump in. I'm sure you do that all the time, right? To organize things in the college. When you're doing this event, you all step in and you do different things. That pretty much stays on. Just because you have a degree, just because you have that, thing at the bottom, doesn't mean that, you're above and beyond, those kinds of activities. So that's one thing as a mindset you need to walk in. Look, this is going to be tough. It may take a few years. Of course, a lot of it depends on performance. A lot of it depends on where you are, what kind of company you join in. Uh, but you need to just keep going at it and proving yourself till you move on to maybe the task that you were looking forward to. If you're going to go on and set up your own business, it's going to be even tougher, right? Because there, like I said, there's no cushion, right? You may have a cushion at home, so to say, but you don't have your own, money that you're getting from the business until the business is set up and running, etc. If you try going and saying that, look, I'm going to take a bit of salary from whatever revenue, I can tell you it doesn't work. I've seen a lot of startups fail. So I worked with a lot of in my previous job at Dubai Holding. I worked a lot with startups. And you've got to make some very, hard and tough choices. It's very fulfilling. People are super happy about it. A lot of people do startups, they fail, they do a second startup, fail again, and maybe the third startup works. So that's the other thing that you've got to also be ready. You're going to fail a lot. And that happens in a regular job also. You fail a lot. And, you just need to get on with it. You learn from your mistakes and get on. I would also say that don't burn yourself out too much. It's easy to get burned out. So you have to, and especially in the day and age that we guys now live in, there's so much noise around us, and there are lots of other things that are happening, from a society perspective. Sometimes depending on the country and city you're staying in, there may be issues. You've got to, you've got to give yourself space to do other things and invest in your personal, if you may, peace of mind and your personal health. Because if you burn out by, I don't know, partying too much, eating all the wrong kinds of food, not exercising, eventually it starts hurting you, and you need to. You'll get there. I spent the first 15 years of my life really not thinking about all of these things, and then finally I realized that, if I just continue down this path, I'm not going to make it. So I had to make a lot of changes in my personal lifestyle. Whereas if you do things in moderation from day one, you'll be fine. That you live a good life, and you realize over a period of time that you're getting ahead of other people because of that. Anyway, that's my advice.
So, according to Adil Abdullah, so celebration of diversity is what you represented and promoted. Uh, to bring together people of different cultures and diversities is a very difficult task, and you managed to do that. But you must have faced some challenges in that. So, and we want to know what are some challenges that you faced and how did you tackle them?
I'll be honest. I mean, I actually truly enjoy working with a very diverse group. For me, that is far more inspirational and exciting than uh, there being a sameness in the group. Uh, and I've always tried since I became the first time I became a manager and I had a team to try to bring in diversity. And when I say diversity, by the way, it's not just nationality, right? I mean, or gender, in that, for that matter. Um, Obviously, you look at it from, I mean, the main thing is diversity of thought. How do people actually think differently? So very often I would also enjoy actually bringing in people who had very, very diverse educational backgrounds, right? So people who might have done, I don't know, sociology versus English literature versus just being an engineer versus being a BCom or anything else or an MBA. I enjoyed that diversity. I enjoyed people bringing in people who had also tried startups and said, look, didn't work for me. I'm going to get back in corporate life. Or it wasn't for me. I tried it. And that happens, by the way. Some people will do that. They'll do that. What is the biggest challenge? I mean, the challenge is, I think, with diversity is you've got to learn how to manage different kinds of people. And that doesn't come easily, right? I mean, because cultures are very different, how one person will react to a specific comment that I will make may be very different from another person. So, right, for example, if I'm dealing with an American versus a Chinese and I say the same thing to both of them, they will react very differently. They interpret it very differently. But you don't understand that, intuitively. You can only learn that from experience by interacting with different people, etc. But I think the biggest thing that you can do, which actually helps in such situations, is trying to over communicate and explain as much as possible where you're coming from, so that people don't get the wrong impression of what you were trying to do or say. That usually is the biggest, if you may, the biggest issue that happens when you're managing diversity, that people don't understand where you're coming from, because, in typical boss style, you'll give very, sharp and concise instructions and you expect everybody to understand that. But it doesn't necessarily work. You sometimes have to sit them down. As much as it takes a lot of time and a lot of effort, you have to sit them down and you have to explain things to them and, make them understand. Some people will get it much faster and you'll realize which people understand it very quickly and get on with things, and there are some people who need to be explained things in a very different way. The other thing that happens in a team is, now, in my case now, I deal with different generations, right? So dealing with millennials, we're dealing with Gen Zs versus my own generation is a very different thing, right? And everybody has different yeah, you need to be firstly open, and you have to believe that diversity actually adds value. I mean, that's the big thing. If you don't believe that it adds value, then even if you have a diversity, and you're not going to get the most out of it. I truly believe diversity actually adds immense value.
Yeah, I think diversity and diversity and inclusion in workspace has become far more, prominent now. People are focusing on it world over because it is one of the biggest things that is happening in terms of Gen Z, millennials, and I think it's very important to juggle between them. I think a very good way, especially in Christ, what we focus on is a holistic development of an individual, be it academically and co-curricular and extracurricular activities. So A lot of students do find it a little tough sometimes because we're not used to a lot of juggling between both of these. In school, we're taught to only focus on exams, or if you're a sports person, only sports, and if you're an artist, it's only art. So when you come to Christ and you see this holistic development happening, a lot of kids, they do tend to struggle meanwhile. But when you especially go into the workspace, it is important for you to juggle between personal life and work life balance. You do need to have a little bit of a difference. And like you said, you deal with so many people, a diverse set of people. And co-curricular and extracurricular activities teach that more than academics could, enhance that type of knowledge. Would you have any piece of advice to give someone who is struggling between juggling and someone who is, potentially just focusing on one aspect of studying or,
Oh yeah,
curricular activities?
completely agree with you. So what I didn't say upfront was I did a lot of extracurricular activities. So I used to, I wasn't very sporty at that point of time, but I had friends who were sporty. But I was doing quizzing, dramatics, debating, dumb charades. I used to go for every college festival, every school festival. It was wonderful. In between of all of that, I would manage my academics. Because why was it wonderful? Because I would meet different people. I wasn't only meeting the people in my own school, in my own college. And I found all of those activities also very stimulating. Right? They would, sitting and there's one thing sitting in HR class and debating, diversity and inclusion. It's another thing going into a debate and having a discussion on, let's say, what's happening in Ukraine. Very different. You wouldn't have the Ukraine discussions in class, most likely. I mean, I don't know, but probably not, unless you're talking to your friend. But then going to a debate and then listening to those kinds of conversations and taking part of them was so exciting. So for sure, look, I think it's also a way in which you let out some steam. It's also a way in which your mind gets, uh, nourished by doing other things. If you keep doing the same thing day after, it's not going to get nourished. So you need to invest in keeping your mind, sharp and focused. And just doing academics is not going to help. Ideally, if I'd had my way and if I knew better at that point in time, I would have probably also spend more time on sports activities. I mean, I'd go out and play the odd cricket game and football with my friends and stuff like that, but probably not as much as I've done later in my life, where it became more of, look, I should do it because I need to invest in myself and keep myself healthy, fit, and I saw the benefits of it. So I would strongly encourage that you make that effort to do that and allocate some time, and you'll see the benefit. Try it for a few weeks and you'll start seeing the benefit. Initially, it'll be tough because you have to change your usual ways in which you work, and the default tendency of humans is go back to what I'm used to because I'm comfortable there, right? So you need to push yourself out of your comfort zone, whatever your comfort zone is. By the way, it could be the reverse also, right? You could be completely into sports and academics and not focusing uh,
Yeah.
on your and other things or whatever it be. So definitely agree with you on that, Shruti.
So can you describe your journey towards rising, to the level of excellence in TCOM?
My journey at TCOM. Yeah, my journey at TCOM was actually, I was very, very fortunate. Let me just say that, right? I mean, sometimes timing is everything. You're in the right place at the right time. And I moved to Dubai in 2001 when the boom was just starting, right? So here I was, a young guy, with some experience, luckily the right qualifications also, uh, and I went to Dubai to do a finance-oriented job, and then they decided to shut down the company that I was joining after 3 months of me moving to Dubai. So you can imagine that I was like in a complete state of panic, because here I'd relocated from India with like 2 suitcases, nothing else. And then come into a country that I've never been before in. And you're told after 3 months, hey, by the way, we're going to shut down this company, so we don't know whether we need you. And what happened was that one of the guys took a liking to me, and he said, look, I want you to come across and join my strategy team. I had never done strategy in my life. And I did one presentation to him before he told me that. And he seemed to like it, and he thought that I would be good at strategy. Now, at that point of time, I could have turned around and said, look, no, I'm actually very keen on continuing to do finance because that I see my career in, or, is there something there? I said, do you want me to move now? He said, yeah, bring your laptop and come right now. And I moved from one building to the other, and that was it. And I never looked back from there. So, I think sometimes you need to, luck is there. I was in the right place at the right time. You need to just grab the opportunity. Sometimes you don't even know what's going to come out. But in my case, I was like, what do I have to do here? If I'm stubborn and I say, no, I want to do a finance job, then, 1 month later, they say, like, okay, thank you very much, in which case you go back to India. I'm done, right? So that helped me a lot. And then, of course, from there onwards, all the other values that I spoke about, right? I mean, it was not easy. There was a lot of hard work, but it was really, really stimulating. I mean, it was amazing times, because Dubai was now on a bull run. It was growing dramatically, and you were part of it. And you were meeting the most interesting people, most interesting companies, startups from all around the world. I got to do some amazing things, and I got to see the world, and that was great. That was great. So, eventually they gave me the responsibility of being the chief strategy officer of TCOM, which was fantastic. I mean, I think I was, I was very, very honored to have that. And then, yeah, what more can I say? I mean, I think it was really, I think the most important thing was, I think I was just there at the right place at the right time. If I had come probably 5 years later, maybe I would have missed that opportunity. Somebody else would have taken that. If I had come to Dubai 5 years earlier, maybe I would have got bored and left. Or maybe I would have gone on and done something else and stuck in finance somewhere else. I don't know what it was. But definitely, I think, sometimes these factors also play a lot in your favor.
It was a roll of a dice, and I guess it was very exhilarating. It was even like just hearing it from you. It's a risk that really did pay off,
Yeah,
but
it's very true.
Yeah,
it's very true.
So-
There's one other, little story I'll say is anecdote. Is I had no idea what was happening in Dubai. A friend of mine basically called me and said, hey, these guys are working on some crazy plans about the city of Dubai. Maybe you should try coming here. And there was a gentleman who flew down from Dubai and interviewed me in Bombay. I remember meeting him. I think we met at Taj, Land's End. He interviewed me there. 6 days later, I had an offer in my hand. 12 days later, I was in Dubai. I mean, it was just completely out of the blue. Anyway, yeah, sorry.
No, it's amazing how the right time, right place changes everything for an individual and everything around them. So did you have various, like you said, you were in finance when you joined and then moved to strategy. So when you were in finance, did you ever want to move into another role? Did you look into, let's say, real estate, IT, telecom, education, biotech, renewable energies, those departments, and say, hey, you know what, I want to work in, a sector like that. I want to work for a sector like that.
Yeah, so I actually have my career, at least initially, I moved around a bit from different industries to different kinds of activities, and I actually enjoyed doing that because I thought it gave me, you know, an exposure to different aspects about how companies work and potentially also different industries. So I started off, like I said, doing sales, selling refrigerators and washing machines. I then joined Citibank, and I was in Citibank for 3 years. And I was there, I was, that's where I got exposed more to finance, more from a consumer finance side, but also pretty much, how the finance side of companies, etc., work. Spent 3 years out there. Then I went and worked in a tech company. Sorry. Then I went and worked for an outsourcing company. So this is when the outsourcing was starting.
Mm-hmm.
Then I worked for a tech company doing project management roles. So I had a fair bit of diversity already as I was going through, because I was kind of trying to figure out, what works, what doesn't work, what do I like, what do I don't like, and I liked going into new things. And even when I joined TCOM, when I moved to Dubai and I joined TCOM, my job for TCOM actually allowed me to explore different industries. So and TCOM's business is that they set up free zones, right? They are the largest free zone operator in the city of Dubai, and they do industry focused free zone. So when I joined, I joined an internet city, which was a tech focused free zone. The guy who took me to his strategy team was the CEO of Media City, which is a media city focused free zone. And then I did work on understanding how to set up free zones around education sector, around the film sector, around biotech sector. So I did go through this whole cycle. And that is, again, I'm really fortunate that I got that opportunity. Not everybody gets that opportunity to be able to do that. So I was pretty lucky in that sense. And I think, if your question is, what sector should one focus on? Is that your question? Is where are you coming from? What's your question?
No, I just wanted to know if you, while you were working in finance, did you ever want to move into something that was, let's say you're working in education, and did you want to move into technology, which is more hands-on in ed tech, and did you want to get your hands dirty into any of these sectors?
Yeah. So to be honest, I think I was very, very happy doing strategy work. So more so, I mean, before that, not so much in finance, because in finance, my exposure was slightly different. It wasn't across different sectors.
Yes.
But when I came into strategy, even though I got exposed to different industries, I would get into those industries because we would make investments in companies. So I'd get involved into M&A activity out there. We do, other kinds of joint ventures and those kinds of things. So, I would get into them, but more from a strategy level, right? So I wouldn't be getting into the operations side of things. That was, that's where I think I found my sweet spot, and I kind of have stayed with that. Is that the right thing to do? I don't know. I mean, maybe there are times when I think that maybe I should have tried even more, because I kind of feel sometimes that I stayed in strategy, even though I got exposed to different industries, and I built up my strategy skills, my analytic skills, and I got into data and big data in a big way. I got into some of those things. But definitely, I think, getting into operations, Expo got me some of that, right? Expo gave me that opportunity to get into operations because you're hosting a mega event. A lot of it was about the operations of the event. But going forward, I think, that's going to be, that's the area where I would probably spend more and more time on. Because as you get more and more senior, of course, you can spend your life being a chief strategy officer, but at some point you need to make the transition towards operations if your aspiration is to be a CEO. You have to get that experience for sure.
So Dubai Expo was an event of its kind. It was something very unique. So what was your vision behind it?
Firstly, it wasn't my vision. It was the vision of the government and our CEO who came up with it. I think the vision for Expo, Expo is an old mega event, right? It's probably the oldest mega event in the modern world. The first one was held in 1851, London. And it's a bit like the Olympics. Cities bid for it. There's a general assembly. Everybody votes. One city is selected, and it happens every 5 years. Why did Dubai go for this? I think Dubai actually was looking at potentially doing either the Olympics or doing this. And the reason for doing it was firstly because it wanted to position itself as a global city. It wanted people to recognize that it was a global hub. But the problem with looking at an Olympics is that Olympics are very much sports focused. They rely heavily in terms of visitation on the domestic population. You need to have a large domestic population base, which UAE doesn't have. And UAE now, total population of UAE is 10. So what it therefore decided to do is focus on Expo. And really, if you see the vision for Expo, is the theme statement for Expo is connecting minds, creating the future, is really probably a very beautiful articulation of what Dubai stands for. Right? It connects people. It's a hub. 93% of the population is expatriate. That means people coming from other parts of the world who work here. Right? So only 7% are Emirati citizens. So really, Dubai has built and achieved whatever it has by connecting people. You connect people and you create great things. In Expo's case, you're creating the future. So it's a beautiful articulation, and I think Dubai wanted to do, and there's been also, you can turn around and say, the stature of expos, global expos, has gone down over the years. There was a point in time when everybody would say, "Oh, an expo is happening," and so the Eiffel Tower was built for the expo, the Seattle Space Needle was built for the expo. Amazing things. The first telephone call happened at an expo. The first color television broadcast happened at an expo. So it had this, aura around it about this being this incredible event. But more recently, that had started going down. So when Dubai took this, we said, look, we're going to make this really be an event which nobody has ever seen before. Right? And our vision was firstly to bring everybody in the world out here. From a country participation perspective, and then also really, if you may, open up, and bring a lot of visitation international, with the objective that this becomes a platform where a lot of ideas are discussed, a lot of new, if you may, people's visions for the future gets discussed. And visitors can come and experience and see what that future looks like. So that really was the vision behind it.
The expo, you compare, see, we have the Olympics, we have the bubble, we have the IPL, we have a bubble because of COVID. And I know many people flew in from all over the world just to visit the Dubai Expo, from Instagram stories to Facebook posts to blogs. Everyone was just talking about it. And one of the greatest things I've noticed is how safe the entire expo was. How everyone was bragging about the safety measures and how seamlessly the entire expo, was going through. So obviously, as a team, you would face a lot of difficulties because we haven't been in a pandemic before. What would you say how would you say that you went about, navigating the COVID situation in terms of setting up the expo?
Yeah, I mean, look, this was really one of the most, like I said, one of the most challenging things. And you have to understand is that nobody knew what was coming, right? Because it's not like COVID had happened before. For example, if bird flu has happened before, this it's happened once before or twice before. If a cholera epidemic happens, no one knew. So, and we were, if you remember the time, we were just receiving images or from China, what was happening when the cases first started. And then you start hearing things in Italy and here and that. And really, I think, the first thing was just to keep, and it was always the most important thing, keep the staff safe. That was our CEO's first objective. Everybody needs to be safe. So we moved very, very quickly to implement working from home protocols, etc., so that everybody is safe. Of course, it also meant we had to right away go ahead and negotiate with the organizing body, the BIE, 1-year delay. Well, 1-year delay also meant that we also needed to manage cost that much better, because just because I've delayed it for 1 year, it's not like I can keep spending it at the same rate. So there's a lot of stuff that we had to do at that point in time. And while we were learning on what the nature of this epidemic is, while the government was learning, while the world was learning. So we were also responding and reacting at the same time to a lot of these policies. And of course, our approach is pretty straightforward. We said, look, government will decide what the policies are. We will comply with them. Now, the other thing which is there is that the Dubai and the UAE government very fast to recognize that this could be a major issue. So in terms of having strict social distancing measures and lockdowns, we moved very fast. And we also moved very, very fast on vaccinations. So, first, for example, I had the Sinopharm vaccines from China, and then I got the Pfizer vaccines, and the government just made this available free for everybody. Right? So there was absolutely no compromise from the government, and for that matter, from our CEO also, in terms of priority number one is the health and safety of everybody. So what that meant was that by the time we actually came to the event, of course, we were all vaccinated. Most of the country was vaccinated. I think our vaccination rate of the country is 97%. And when I say vaccinated, I mean like double vaccinated with boosters everywhere. Right? I'm not talking about just having one shot or 2 shots. And we were not taking it lightly. We would get tested all the time. So I was getting tested every 2 days on site to make sure that, because, there are hundreds and thousands of people, we were pretty strict about wearing our masks. And then the waves were happening. So we would also respond to them. So, at one point you're actually, keeping a focus on safety. And then, once we had been through a year of COVID, we also realized that, look, okay, this doesn't look like it's going to go anywhere, which means that we have to pull this event off within COVID. So then we started adapting ourselves and our protocols and saying, okay, how are we going to do this, right? How are we going to? And we did test events. We would call in everybody's family and friends, and we'd go and get them all onto site, and we'd open up one part of the site and we'd test things out. We did 3 or 4 such test events. But really, we went through this in a very, very meticulous and detailed manner, and we learned all the way through, and to make sure that the prime objective, that people are safe. And then, of course, once the crowd started coming, people appreciated that. Right? Everybody's vaccination was checked. If you didn't have a vaccine, you need to have a PCR test, which was done 48 hours before. So, and we never compromised.
Okay, sir, if you look at it, the Dubai Expo was conducted from October 2021 to March 2022. So was there any marketing strategy behind it, naming the Expo 2020 instead of 2021? And what were the benefits if there was a strategy behind this?
You're talking about the branding strategy, about keeping it with Expo 2020.
Yes, sir.
Look, I think so. Investing in a brand, and we had substantially invested in a brand, is an expensive activity, right? When you invest in a brand, it's not just about creating the logo, all the necessary material, but you also have to register the trademark. You have to register the trademarks literally all around the world because you intend to market the event around the world. And then you go around and you start producing a lot of ads, campaigns, etc. And we had done that for a few years, right? So we had started marketing Expo 2020 from 2017 on. So redoing all of that and trying to and just changing the brand, we didn't see the benefit of that because it would have been a lot of money for, which we thought that we could just, if we communicate it the right way, it's not going to be an issue. And I think it was the right call because I haven't heard of anyone who said, look, I'm not going to show up because you didn't change Expo 2020 to Expo 2021. On the contrary, I think, the visitation numbers we exceeded, we got, which was 24.1 million, far exceeded, I think, everybody's expectations. Our target was 25 million pre-COVID. During COVID, we did 24.1 million. So not an issue. I mean, by the way, I think that the Olympics also did the same thing. Tokyo Olympics also did the same thing. I don't think they changed theirs. So it's not because it's way too expensive. I mean, we were managing costs because of the 1 year delay. We had to manage costs.
So something that's happening right now in this is current trend is metaverse. It's everybody's talking about it. Everyone wants to get into it. Some are not very clear as to what it is. But do you think it'll make a peak at the next expo, or how do you think that the metaverse actually impacted the Dubai Expo, if it did?
Yeah, so we actually looked at this extensively, and we actually invested a lot on something called the Virtual Expo. And the Virtual Expo had a few components. One is we had a website, and I think it still exists. You can go and see it. I think it's called Virtual Expo Dubai. And you could physically zoom in on the map and go inside pavilions, and you could see what the pavilion would look like. At the same time, we were also using that same platform for live streaming events. So if there was a concert, if there was a performance, talk, live streaming.
Yeah.
And then that content is also available. It was available later on that you could see it also. I think the reality is that what was well received. Firstly, there are a few issues. One issue is, I think we are moving. Most people now consume their content a lot on their mobile phone, right? So that's an issue. So optimizing it for mobile is a challenge. The second thing is, specifically in terms of expos, is we were looking at doing it as a hybrid event, right? So we wanted to give both options. But in reality, getting a virtual, recording a virtual reality version of what's happening inside the Korea Pavilion is not as easy as it sounds. Right? It requires significant amount of investment and timing, and sometimes the country pavilions are not there right now, whereas you need the content way before so that you can get the platform ready. So there were those issues. And then, but what was really successful was people streaming, logging in to watch Coldplay performing, or Alicia Keys performing, or A.R. Rahman performing. Those were amazing. There were a lot of people. But having said that, whoever came to the event and saw it, I don't think you will find a single person out of the 24.1 million who came who will say, you know what, I could have seen this on YouTube. Because what we really invested the most on, and which not just us, but even the countries who took part, is creating immersive experiences, which you can only experience once you're inside that box, inside that exhibition space, right? So imagine being in an exhibition space, and you can see there are a lot of videos online. 360-degree projection, 360-degree sound, you can interact with all the screens. Now the cost of digital technology has gone down so much that you can create some incredible experiences. And I think that's going to keep going, right? Because that cost is going down and down and down and down more, and the ability to create interactive experiences with giant screens will be there. I think what is changing is what do expos stand for. There was a point in time expos was about showcasing all the newest inventions. That's probably not so much the case anymore. I think because you can see the newest invention actually on YouTube, right? That's where you can see, oh, look at this crazy invention that I've come. Okay, great, fine. Yeah, so you've seen it. Now, why do I need to go to expos? What expos are becoming more about is like literally being these incredible immersive experiences. So they're becoming a little bit more like, I guess, a theme park now than previously. That would be the case. So I definitely think there's a role for there being an expo. Just the nature of the expo is now changing and will evolve. And I'm really happy. It's amazing that Japan is doing the next one, because their technology, obviously, power is very well known. So we think that they will take it even to a higher level than we were able to. And I'm not being arrogant when I say that I think we did an unbelievable job, and how amazing those experiences.
So, what were your experiences in building the smart city coaching, and what were some of the challenges that you faced?
Smart city coaching, yes, that was a great project. What were the challenges? The challenges in Kochi are actually, more than anything else, are political, right? Because I'm sure you guys know the government pretty much changes every other cycle, right? I mean, at least it used to be the case. I don't know if it's still the case, but pretty much where it's left at one point, Congress would come the next go. So we had to do this through those governments while the governments were changing. That was one challenge. Luckily, of course, Kerala has now a growing tech sector, so everybody saw the benefit of having smart city coaching. I think challenge number 2 was, that's the case again everywhere. It's bureaucracy, dealing with bureaucracy, right? Once you're there in Dubai, the governments work super fast. Decisions are very quick. You go and I don't even need to go to, the Electricity and Water Authority to apply for a new electricity or water connection. I can do it through the app. So, I mean, that just to show you how advanced the city is in terms of, getting rid of bureaucracy. So there's very little I can't do on the app. So from there, you go to, an environment, at least at that point of time, which was not so tech-enabled. Things might have changed. So it's been a while since, I've been back to Kochi. That was the other thing, right? So you need to manage all of that, etc. So that was challenge number 2. And then, of course, challenge number 3 is, trying to convince companies why Kochi, right? Why not Bangalore? I mean, Bangalore is there, right? Why do I need to go from Bangalore, or why do I need to leave Hyderabad? Of course, that was actually not so much of a challenge, because it became a cost discussion, right? I mean, Bangalore is more expensive, real estate is more expensive, same in Hyderabad, and why would you want to do that? And Kerala, of course, has the inherent talent. So that was an easier one to actually do. I think most of it was really around, managing the politics and the bureaucracy and all of those kinds of things. But slowly but surely, I think I went and checked out the website a few months back. It seems that things are progressing. I haven't been there physically for a few years now, but it definitely does seem that things are progressing. But it's not. I think that's a challenge that everybody who invests in India has to factor in. Right? That you are dealing with, governments, bureaucracy, changing things, red tape, exactly. Regulations could change, sometimes for the better, sometimes for the worse.
And so let's just build up on that question. Apart from the red tape, did you see like very stark difference in working with people in India in terms of work culture in comparison to working in Dubai, especially as a project like smart city, Kochi, right, where everything is very tech-based. Do you think people were more accepting in, Dubai in comparison to India, or how did you, get through it?
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, I think firstly, no. I say, I mean, I enjoyed working with the guys who I worked with out there. Of course, you don't have the level of diversity that I worked with, that I would
Yeah.
experience in Dubai, right? So unfortunately, the way things are sometimes in some of these states and cities, you will only work with and you'll only find local talent. So that was
Yeah.
definitely one of the differentiators which was there. But was it a challenge? Not really. You need to adapt, right? And like I said, that's been my has been my, I guess, a focus for me, and has hopefully been a strength of my approach, which I learned to adapt to different situations, and that was the case that you had to. Now, there was, of course, potentially a gap from a technical level, right? Not so much from the issue was not so much working with the people as much as do you have the right technical skill sets that you require to achieve what you can, and that's where then you need to, I think we needed to find the right talent. Sometimes we deputed talent from Dubai. It's a talent that we had worked with. We sent back, people who are originally from Kerala and want to move back or are happy to support this project because they're so proud of it. But they know how we work and they understand how we operate and what are the standards at which we want to deliver this. So that was our approach, in which we identify talent locally and then we take them back on them, and then use that. And then, of course, we were also, the way we were structured was you obviously have a holding company and then this is a subsidiary. So one of the discussions that you get into a lot is, which services do you provide from the holding company, which services do you keep at the subsidiary? And very often this will go through cycles, right? So initially you may land up doing things from the holding company because you want to direct it in the right way and you don't want it to drift in the wrong direction. And then later on, you start giving more and more freedom to the subsidiary to start doing things. Sometimes, for cost reasons, you take it back to the holding because you may have more than one smart city, which was in our case, we had two, one in Malta and we had one in Kochi. So that was the other consideration which was there, where we went through those cycles of deciding what we do with the holding, what we do with the subsidiary. But really, that's, if you're right, I think that was probably the biggest issue, right? Making sure that you have the right technical skill set, which can help deliver and achieve the vision that you want.
This is for you. So throughout this conversation, we've had many golden nuggets that you provided us in terms of diversity, inclusion, working with different people, and as the future of our country, of our states, we do want to incorporate a lot of old school values with new school thought processes. Would you give and you have a lot of experience which counts for a lot in terms of growth and how we can learn from you. What would be one of the primary partakes that you would leave us with? What a thought that we could think upon and build upon so that we can be better individuals as going forward?
Yeah, look, I think it's probably just a recap of what I've already said. I think as individuals, I would say, firstly, make sure, focus on the values that you're probably being taught by your parents. They're usually very, very strong and robust values. Don't let go of those. Values are very important in organizations around the world. Honesty, integrity, hard work. Build yourself as a person who's interesting. You're not just somebody who's focused on academics, but you do different things also. Right? You like taking part in extracurricular activities. You like playing sports. You're into photography. You're into painting. Whatever it be, build yourself up because that will help you firstly, from somebody who's going to recruit you, they love people. At least if I were there, I would be like, oh, wow, that's nice, right? So, I mean, I always go straight, after I see the initial part of the resume, I usually go straight down and see what extracurricular activities is this person doing, right? So do that. I think that'll help you. Invest on yourself as a human being, whether it in terms of physical activities, yoga, mindfulness, whatever goes for you. And then be very open-minded. You're always, I strongly, if you can and you have the opportunity to do it, I strongly suggest you even look at taking an international stint. It'll change the way you think about it. You may want to come back. I'm not saying you have to stay outside all, but going out, working a few years in different countries will really change the way you approach things. Yeah, and then lastly, be ready for a grind. First few years won't be easy. Just be ready for that, and that's fine, by the way. And it's not. You've had a great time staying at home with your parents, taking care of you, making your food for you, and all those things. Now, I personally was so leaving home and trying to make it on my own. It was one of the most exciting things. I have 2 kids now who I'm going to send off to college, and they won't be studying in Dubai. And I'm like, man, this is the most exciting part of life. You're going to be on your own. So in many of your cases, if you're already outside, you're not living with your parents, that's great. You probably know what I'm talking about. Or still at home or have some type of cushion, it's going to come. It's going to be fun. It's going to be tough, but it's going to be fun. Those are my key takes.
It's been wonderful conversing with you, and I can tell from me, I've been in the workforce for 2 years, and I've learned a lot in this 1 hour conversation. And I'm definitely going to go back to be a better employee. That's for sure.
Thank you. Thank you very much, guys.
I think this is the end of our Q&A session. I would like to thank Sanjive Khosla for honoring us with this presence and taking time out from his busy schedule to share his inspirational journey and thoughts. It's been an honor to be in the presence of an accomplished individual like you. I mean, from a college student's perspective, I think I've learned to have an open mind. I have to be ready to face failures, and despite having the failures, I have to overcome them, and I have to be, um, you know, um, ready to face the struggles that come along. And I think from your journey, we definitely take the motivation to, grab onto any opportunities that come across, and like we've seen the right time and right place purely worked in favor for you. And I think it's great to see how you built your Dubai Expo 2020, you and your team, and you guys overcome it despite COVID-19 and everything. So yeah, I'm sure all of us are taking away a lot of learnings from this entire session, and it was very inspirational for us. And thanks to Shruti and Aditya for helping out in smooth comeback for this interaction. And so we hope to host you again in the near future. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, sir.
Thank you. Thank you. Thanks, guys.
Bye, sir.